Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We're going to break down the foundational narrative found in the first 5 chapters of Genesis. We'll be mapping out its epic progression, literally from the dawn of creation all the way to the complex lineage of early humanity. Now, you know this is one of the most famous texts in human history, right? It sets the stage for thousands of years of literature, culture, and, well, our fundamental understanding of human nature itself. And when we look at it structurally, it reveals this absolutely fascinating progression of order, disruption, and then incredibly rapid expansion. To understand this vast timeline, we're tracking the narrative across 5 distinct movements. We've got the 7 days of creation, the Garden of Eden, temptation in the fall, the first murder, and finally, the generations leading up to Noah. So, starting right off with section 1, the 7 days of creation. We begin with a dark, formless void, and from there the text describes God methodically, almost mathematically, organizing chaos into life over 6 active days. It's highly systematic, actually. First, the environments are created. You've got light divided from dark, the firmament of the sky, the dry land. Then it's like a giant puzzle being filled in. Those environments are populated with the sun and stars, the fish and birds, and finally the land animals. And the whole thing culminates on the 6th day with humanity, created in God's own image, both male and female, who are given a specific mandate to multiply and have dominion over the earth. Then the narrative concludes its first major phase by establishing a sacred pause. It sets a profound precedent of rest after creation is complete. The text emphasizes that God looked at everything made, saw that it was very good, and on that 7th day, rested. It establishes a foundational rhythm of work and rest that echoes throughout the entire rest of the text. Moving into section 2, the Garden of Eden. Now, what's really interesting here is how the narrative zooms all the way in from a massive cosmic scale down to a very specific, tangible geography. It tells us that before rain even existed, a mist watered the ground. And from this space, a river flowed out to water the garden, parting into 4 distinct rivers, the Pison, Gihon, Hiddekel, and Euphrates, that compass surrounding lands. The text even gives us the specific resources of these areas, noting regions rich with good gold, bdellium, and onyx stone. It paints this incredibly vivid picture of extreme localized abundance. But right in the middle of this, we get the central tension of Eden. Its absolute abundance contrasted with a single, ultimate boundary. The man is placed in the garden to dress and keep it, and he's told he can freely eat of every single tree, including the tree of life. But there's one stark exception, right? The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is strictly forbidden, with the explicit, serious warning that eating from it will result in death. So, the crucial point we have to grasp is that humanity is intimately connected to both the divine breath and the physical earth itself. The man is formed directly from the dust of the ground, brought to life by the breath of God. And then, when no suitable companion is found among the animals, God induces a deep sleep, takes a rib from the man, and forms the woman to be a helpmeet for him. They dwell together completely naked and unashamed, existing in perfect innocence and perfect harmony with each other and their Creator. Which brings us to section 3, temptation and the fall. This perfect order we just talked about is suddenly and catastrophically disrupted. The subtle serpent comes in and makes a deceptive promise, directly contradicting the established rule of the garden. He basically says, "No way you won't die." It shifts the entire narrative from a warning of death to this tempting promise of enlightenment and godlike status. This is the exact spark that ignites the narrative's central conflict. It plants a tiny, devastating seed of doubt about the boundaries they were given. And the disobedience triggers a rapid, cascading domino effect. It moves swiftly from temptation to an immediate, overwhelming sense of shame. The woman sees the fruit is good for food, pleasant to the eyes, and desired to make one wise. She eats, gives it to her husband, and instantly, that innocence we saw earlier just vanishes. Their eyes are opened, but instead of feeling like gods, they just feel terribly exposed. They desperately sew fig leaves together, and when they hear God walking in the garden, they literally hide among the trees in fear. When they're confronted, the blame game starts. The man blames the woman blames the serpent, and after the blame is passed around, the text lays out these highly specific, world-altering consequences that fundamentally change the relationship between humanity, nature, and the divine. The serpent is cursed to the dust. The woman faces multiplied sorrow in childbirth and a major shift in relational dynamics. And the man, he's told the very ground he was made from is now cursed. It will yield thorns and thistles, and he's going to have to extract bread from it by the sweat of his brow, day in and day out, until he returns to the dust. The fallout is absolute.
To prevent fallen humanity from eating from the tree of life and living forever in this newly broken, separated state, God actually clothes them in animal skins, which is the very first instance of death being used to cover their shame, and drives them out of the garden entirely. Cherubims and a flaming sword that turns every way are stationed at the east of Eden, permanently sealing off their access to perfect innocence. They're forced out into the harsh world to till the ground.
Section 4. The First Murder.
So now, outside of Eden, the consequences of the fall immediately escalate into fatal jealousy between Adam and Eve's first two sons. We have two brothers with two different occupations. Cain is a tiller of the ground. Abel is a keeper of sheep. They both bring offerings, but God has respect for Abel's pastoral offering of the firstlings of his flock, while entirely rejecting Cain's agricultural offering. Cain is furious. His countenance falls. God even comes to him directly and issues a stark warning, saying basically, if you do not do well, sin lieth at the door. Yet he still has the choice to rule over it.
But Cain fails to heed that warning. Following the tragic murder of his brother out in the field, God questions Cain. And this chilling exchange completely echoes the earlier hiding in Eden, but it's so much darker. While Adam hid in fear, Cain just lies with bold defiance. Am I my brother's keeper? This shows a deep, willful separation from both his brother and his creator. And God tells him the voice of his brother's blood literally cries out from the ground. So the cycle of punishment continues, and Cain is driven even further away from God's presence. The ground will no longer yield its strength to him. He's destined to be a fugitive and a vagabond in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Yet, when Cain fears he'll be killed by whoever finds him, he is curiously protected. God places a mark on him, promising sevenfold vengeance on anyone who harms him. And fascinatingly enough, this cursed fugitive goes on to build the very first city mentioned in the text, naming it after his son Enoch. Finally, Section 5, Generations from Adam to Noah. Now the scope widens significantly. We see that despite Cain's cursed lineage, his descendants are incredibly industrious. They rapidly develop crucial elements of civilization. We see Jabal initiating nomadic agriculture, Jubal pioneering the arts with the harp and organ, and Tubal-Cain becoming a master of metallurgy, working in brass and iron. Civilization is advancing at lightning speed, even in a fallen state. But there is a parallel track running alongside this. Adam and Eve have another son named Seth, whom Eve sees as an appointed replacement for the murdered Abel. Through Seth, a brand new lineage begins. The text specifically notes that by the time of Seth's son Enos, men begin to call upon the name of the Lord. So we get a sense of spiritual renewal in the narrative, happening right alongside the rapid technological advancements of Cain's line. Now, when we look at the sheer scale of this timeline, the data from Chapter 5 is just staggering. These early patriarchs possess massive, nearly millennium-long lifespans. I mean, Adam lives to be 930 years old, Enos hits 905, and Methuselah tops the record at a mind-boggling 969 years. The constant refrain in this chapter is, "And he died," which is a rhythmic reminder of the curse of Eden, sure, but the sheer duration of these lives is undeniably vast. However, there is one stunning exception to that repetitive cycle of death. Breaking the rhythm found throughout the entire genealogy, the text includes this fascinating anomaly regarding a man named Enoch. He lived 365 years, and the text simply states he walked with God and he was not, for God took him. He just vanishes. He completely bypasses the death that claimed literally everyone else in the chapter, disappearing into the divine presence. Which brings us to a highly specific number, 500. This is the age of Noah when he begat his three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Noah's arrival is hugely significant. At his birth, his father Lamech prophesied that Noah would bring them comfort concerning their work and the harsh toil of their hands because of the cursed ground. And as we conclude this explainer, we leave off at a massive cliffhanger. Think about it. We have a civilization that has grown exponentially in both capability and consequence. Humanity is living for centuries at a time. They're building cities, forging metals, and spreading across the earth, all while carrying the heavy, complicated legacy of Eden's disruption. It leaves us with this really provocative thought. What happens when a broken world becomes fully populated? How will this stage, set with profound longevity and ancient conflict, trigger the next great cataclysm? That is the narrative engine that drives us forward.